I want to teach tonight on the witchcraft spirit of Jezebel. There are three predominant ways that this witchcraft operates in your church: manipulation, intimidation, like the associate that says, if you don't do it this way, I'm leaving, or the man that has more money than any of the other elders. He says, if you don't start making decisions that I like, I'm taking my money and going somewhere else. That is witchcraft. That's using your finances. That's trying to intimidate people. It could be domination. We see a lot of women dominating their husbands. That's even where... Not too loud, brother. But we will share here, too, that witchcraft cannot operate when you've got a strong authority figure. It took Ahab to be wimpy and milquetoast and to let Jezebel take over. And if you become a milquetoast and you keep saying it'll get better, when God has put you in authority to take care of it and to deal with it, then God will let that spirit take you over and destroy everything around you. All right, now I'm going to just tell you real quick about one of my friends that is back east. He's got a faith church. I went to his church in Michigan, and he said there was a lady in his church that was going to a prophetess who was not committed to any church, but she was pulling intercessors out of a bunch of different churches, and she was predominantly pulling intercessors out of other churches and telling her that she would teach them how to get into deeper intercession. And she was very controlling. She promised they would have special authority, there would come financial rewards, and she gave them these big flattering, now realize, a Jezebelic spirit will flatter you and puff you up, trying to get you to think they are the best prophet you've ever heard. And she used all these flattering words to gain their loyalty, literally. And her group of women literally became bewitched and blinded, because when we talk about witchcraft, Paul was dealing with this when he spoke to the Galatians, and he said, who has bewitched you? Galatians 3:1. And the word bewitch means in the Greek to smite or to blind the eyes. So when somebody is bewitched, their spiritual eyes are blinded, and they might take it as a true word from God, but it's a blindness that's letting the enemy come and take over their life. I'm telling you, Paul didn't like that, because they had begun in the spirit and they were letting Jesus be exalted, and suddenly these bewitching people came in and they began to draw attention to themselves. So again, bewitch in the Greek means to smite or to blind the eyes. Galatians 3:1, who has bewitched you? Well, the women would praise and dance God in wild abandon, sometimes for hours, until they fell in exhaustion. And then they would start prophesying to each other crazy and dangerous things. They would puff each other up and flatter each other. This pastor I'm talking about, his name was Pastor Dave. She prophesied to his head intercessor that she was called by God to be Dave's replacement, and that she would soon be the new pastor of the church. And somebody taped what she said, and Pastor Dave heard it. Dave was not happy when he heard that this intercessor, who was becoming more and more rebellious against him, because she was being infected by this Jezebel spirit, that she had been deceived. And he began to deal. Now, this is what you have to do. He called the intercessor in and dealt with her and wanted her to repent of going to these meetings and for telling other people that she would soon be the pastor of the church. And the Bible always gives us a space to repent. Even Jezebel, in the book of Revelations, Jesus said, I gave her a space to repent. But you know, he said, if she does not repent, I will kill her and her followers, her children, with death. Jesus called this spirit the depths of Satan. No other spirit has ever been called by Jesus the depths of Satan. I think it's one of the most hated spirits in heaven because God knows it destroys what he's built in great churches and great people. Well, Pastor Dave confronted his intercessor and her husband. She actually began to sow her bad seeds amongst others. But then Pastor Dave found out that another church had his intercessors going to prophetess meetings, and that pastor did nothing, and the church went from hundreds of people down to just a few, and the pastor kept complaining, I don't know why all my people are leaving. It's because this spirit had come in, and he was not dealing with it. He was an Ahab. Do you understand? Pastor Dave, he went to prophetess meeting, and he asked her, how can you be telling people like my intercessors they're going to be the next pastor? She was sowing this leaven and this rebellion, and he said, I'm going to expose you around this county if you keep doing this. And you know, that prophetess rose up against him, and she began to prophesy to him. She said, your foundations are breaking up. Your foundations are breaking up. The next day, he was walking through his sanctuary. This is the story he told me. And he got dizzy, and it actually seemed like the whole church started swaying and seemed to be breaking up like in an earthquake. And the Lord spoke to him as this was happening, and he said, Dave, remove the fault line and stop the spiritual quake. Remove the fault line and stop the spiritual quake. He saw that the fault line was the breach in his intercessors, his head intercessor and her husband, who had become Jezebelic. So he went and he asked them if they would repent and not go to these meetings anymore. I'm telling you, they began to curse him. They actually left the church and pulled a bunch of other people with them to go with them. You know, it's amazing. They started a new church, and the new church was called the Church in Hiding. I thought, what a perfect name. And she took several people with her, but she also released curses. Pastor Dave said it took a little while, but the church became healthy again. Once he got the fault line out, that Jezebelic spirit, that witchcraft, God began to restore health to his church.